Identify the problem. In other words, what question do you hope to answer with your research? And once you have your research question, the next step is to reformulate it as a thesis statement, which is Research Notebook 3. And the thesis statement answers your research question in such a way that it leads into the major points that you are going to make in your paper. So as you begin to narrow your topic, you may not know right away what your research question is. So what I recommend is to gather information on the broader topic to explore different possibilities and to help narrow your topic. You need to choose something that's interesting to you. So if you're interested in the topic, chances are that other people will be too. And researching will be a lot more fun. As I've told you before, it's impossible to make composition really an interesting class. So the best way I know how to do it is for you to find something that interests you to research. So your first step is going to gather background information. And if you want to do a general overview, you can start looking up sources. The library at South Florida State College is a great place to start narrowing your focus and finding the resources. And the best way to do it is to ask yourself the following questions. What subtopics relate to the broader topic? What questions do these sources raise? And what do you find interesting about the topic? As I've said before, it does not have to be argumentative. It can be informative. It can be pretty much anything you want. And you need to think about your audience. Who would be interested in the issue? So what I tell students when they're first starting is to start looking for reference sources, because it's a great place to start to begin your research, because they provide a way to identify potential research topics. They are a starting point to gather information on your topic and an introduction to major works and key issues that are related to your topic, as well as key authors in your area of research. So when you look up sources, general reference sources and dictionaries and encyclopedias, they provide general information about a variety of subjects, and they include definitions that may help you break down and better understand your topic, but they're generally not cited. So they mainly give you an overview of a topic. So, say, for example, you're researching homelessness. Well, there's a lot of information out there about homelessness, and you have to have peer-reviewed sources. So that's something that's really, really important as you begin to narrow your topic. So for Research Notebook 3, you're going to turn your topic into a research question. So after you choose a topic and gather background information, you need to add focus with your research questions. So you begin to explore questions. So you ask open-ended how and why questions about your general topic. And you consider the so what. Why does it matter? Why should it matter to other people? And then you need to reflect on the questions you have considered. And then you need to identify 1 to 2 questions that you find engaging and interesting, and which can be explored through further research. So as you do that, you need to determine and evaluate your research question. What aspect of the more general topic will you explore? Is it clear? Is it focused? Because your research questions have to be specific enough to be well covered in your space available, which is 1,200 words. And is your research question complex? They shouldn't have a simple yes or no answer, and they should require research and analysis. So you need to make a hypothesis. And after you've come up with a question, you need to consider the path your answer might take. So if you're creating an argument, what is your argument? And why does it matter? And how might other people challenge your argument? And what kind of sources will you need to support your argument? Good research questions are clear, focused, and complex. So in this little graphic that I've given you, I'm giving you examples of both unclear and clear, and focused and unfocused, and simple and complex questions. So here's an unclear one, and this is one that all students like to look at first. And that's, why are social networking sites harmful? That's a very unclear question. It's very vague. It's very broad. You want to narrow the topic a little bit. So maybe looking at how are online users experiencing or addressing privacy issues on social networking sites like TikTok and Instagram. That's unclear versus clear. And then you have focused versus unfocused. An unfocused question is, what is the effect on the environment from global warming? Again, I've seen this question through the many years that I've been teaching this course. A lot of students are interested in global warming, but it's really not focused. You need to focus it on something specific. So something like, how is glacial melting affecting penguins in Antarctica? That's a very focused question for a very specific audience. And then you have the simple questions. How are doctors addressing diabetes in the United States? I had a student want to do this topic a couple of semesters ago, and I said to her, that's a very simplistic, very broad question. You need to narrow it down. And so we came up with this one. What are common traits of those suffering from diabetes in America? And how can those commonalities be used to aid the medical community in prevention of the disease? So you need to have a good research question that's clear, that's focused, and complex. And so that's basically one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about this week. And then the other thing I want to talk to you about, of course, is the first essay that you will be doing. So that is the exemplification and illustration essay, and that is writing to illustrate. So this is a short essay, 600 words, so 1 to 2 pages, 1.5 to 2 pages. So what does it really mean? The word example comes from the Latin word exemplum, which refers to one thing from among many or something that illustrates a more general category. The word illustrate comes from the Latin word lux, which means light or illumination, to brighten or cast light upon something to make it clearer or more visible. So when you write exemplification or illustration essays, you are choosing specific things to illustrate a general statement. You're making it more clear, more understandable, or more visible. What is an exemplification essay? It uses one or more particular cases or examples to illustrate or explain a point, an assertion, or an abstract concept. So if you think about it this way, have you ever watched a talk show? Which are the most interesting and animated guests? Usually when I'm teaching this in person, one of the things I talk about is Maury Povich and his show, where he always does the, are you the father or you are not the father? Because people love to watch those. Well, the most interesting and animated guests are people who support the points that they're trying to make with examples. Sweeping generalizations and vague statements are not as effective as specific observations, anecdotes, details, and opinions. So exemplification is used in every single rhetorical mode in order to explain and clarify and to add interest and persuade. When you want to understand a general concept or an abstract idea, you probably ask for an example. And when you want to explain an idea, you probably provide examples as a strategy to make your thinking clear. Illustration or exemplification is simply a way that writers and speakers use to explain things so that readers and listeners can better understand the topic being discussed. For example, if you want to impress your date with a good meal, how do you know what a good meal is? What I see as a good meal isn't necessarily what you see as a good meal, because everybody has different opinions. So an example might be a 3-course meal of lobster, bisque soup, roasted salmon with garlic mashed potatoes, and a dessert of chocolate mousse, as well as a cappuccino. Okay, not everybody likes that. I personally don't eat salmon, but I love bisque soup as long as it's tomato, not lobster. I'm allergic to shellfish. Examples make the abstract concrete and the general specific. So when you say, for example, or for instance, you're providing examples to help listeners or readers understand what you mean. So you might also say to someone, you don't get enough sleep. You sleep from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. every day. You might say, you don't exercise enough. You haven't seen the inside of a gym since high school. Or you might say, lunch isn't supposed to come from a drive-through window or a vending machine. Exemplification, like the other rhetorical strategies we've studied, is an aid to clearer writing, thinking, and understanding. So it works through a process of moving back and forth between general ideas and specific examples. Specific examples share the general characteristics of the idea or concept or principle a writer is explaining by making use of them. It also enables readers to see how the idea exists in the real world, and from those examples, readers can get or grasp the idea that you were trying to explain. All good writing uses specific examples: facts, statistics, instances, people, places, events, and history. Examples also help you test your own ideas, your thesis, as well as to test the ideas of others. For example, let's say you propose to write an essay about how SFSC students perform better academically than other Florida community college students. What examples could you include to illustrate your point? Remember to use examples that do each of the following. You want to add interest. So in the example provided, readers are not just going to be interested in statistics or facts about SFSC scores, GPAs, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to want some human interest or something to help keep them reading. So you want to use examples that explain and clarify. So specific examples that prove or support your point. There's no general rule about how many examples you need to support your thesis. Essays may use as few as 2 or as many or more than half a dozen examples that drive home the point the writer's trying to make. The problem is, or the easiest way to think about it is to select a range of examples, because it's just as important as choosing an appropriate number. You need to use representative examples. Your experience alone is not enough to support a conclusion. You need to gather examples of the experiences of many people to decide if your theory is valid. And unless the essay is of a personal nature, and it will not be because we do not do narrative writing, your own experience is not enough to substantiate claims about the world at large. So that is basically for the exemplification illustration essay. I am going to continue to share my screen with you and talk to you a little bit more about what you need to do this week. And I'm going to show you a little bit about using the library at Panther Central. I'm going to go ahead and log into Panther Central and to Brightspace to just talk to you about the assignments. But the first thing I want to do is kind of go over what and how to use the library. So when you log into Panther Central, the first thing you should see at Panther Central, towards the bottom most likely, is your library resources. And what I tell students to do is always to utilize the library. The library resources it's a fantastic resource. And that's exactly what it is. You can go and talk to a librarian. The librarian can assist you in any way, shape, or form. But you can also use research guides, LibGuides, catalog and general searching. I tell students to do a catalog and general search at first for their topic. So what I'm going to put in here is, for example, if I were a student and I were going to write a research paper on horror movies, I'm just going to type in horror movies and see what my results are. Okay, notice that there are 6,256 results. Okay, so there's a lot of, there's a lot of information here, but you want to go over here to the left and you want to click this button that says peer reviewed journals, and you want to apply the filters and see what happens. Okay, so what you have here is there's 960 results, down from 6,000, which is great. And then you can look through sort of and see where you might want to go. There's lots of different articles that you can look at. So say, for example, I don't like any of these on the first page. So okay, so this one is an article that is looking at the supernatural, family, and trauma in contemporary horror movies. So say, for example, you wanted to look at these 3 subtopics. This would be a good article to look at, possibly. I'm going to click on the article and kind of read the abstract just to see what it says. It says, we would like to investigate the recurrence of a thematic complex in a set of horror movies in which supernatural and terrifying event appears closely related to the resurgence of ancient trauma removed and long buried in the past who's trying to come into the light. Trauma is always related to a violence committed against women and children and are precisely the characters that the supernatural try to get in touch with, looking for contact or out for revenge. The uncanny agent and who's trying to investigate on him seems to be connected by some kind of affinity of history and life, which strongly implicates familiar dynamics. Well, I'm not really sure if I would particularly enjoy that one. So, that's one to sort of look at, but perhaps it's given me an idea. Horror movies and trauma. So if I look at trauma and horror movies, okay, so that article does come up, but again, narrows it down. I'm going to apply the filter again for peer-reviewed journals, and there's only 36 sources. Okay, and so this one is horror movies and the social unconscious. This one is Drink Full and Descend, the horror of Twin Peaks, which was a show that came out in the 70s. This one talks about matricide, which is monstrous mothers. So, and you can just kind of see monstrous mothers are commonplace in horror films. Often these are real life mothers who have become monstrous due to a disruption in their relationship with their child. So say, for example, I wanted to look at Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho in particular, and we wanted to talk about Norman Bates and his relationship with his mother, then this would be an article that I would use for my research paper. Or possibly, healing our histories through the lens of horror. Again, that would be something I might be able to look at. So there's lots of different things that you could look at. This one has monsters and PTSD, looking at monster imagery and psychological therapy and film and television. So that might be another one that you could look at if you were looking to do a paper on horror movies. If you were looking to do a paper on book banning, which of course is the topic that I am very passionate about. So I'm going to, again, just type in the general search bar, my general filters, and then I'm going to apply the filters and look with peer-reviewed journals. And then there's all kinds of information here. So what would I want to look at, particularly in book banning? I would probably want to look at book banning and the effects on students, or look at possibly, so I'm going to change my search parameters to book banning and its effects. And then I'm going to click again on the peer review journals and apply the filters. And again, so you see 377 book challenges tracked by the American Library Association in 2019, and the problem is growing. So this particular article, book banning and its adverse effects on students. So that would definitely be something that I would look at. It was published in 2022, so it was within the last 10 years. And so that's really relevant. There's only 34 sources. You only have to have 5 sources for your annotated bibliography, and you only need 3 in your research paper. All of them have to be peer reviewed. So this sort of just kind of gives you a little bit. And again, you can see all kinds of different things when you're looking. And it's sort of just a limited overview of the library, but that's what I recommend doing, is going to Panther Central, clicking on the library, doing a general search, and that will help you turn your general topic into a question. And then that's really all that's necessary. Now I'm going to click on Brightspace, and I'm going to talk to you about the assignment for Research Notebook 3. Just sort of ignore the fact that I have to grade 1 million papers here. And I'm going to go to Contents. And I'm going to go to Research Notebooks, Assignments, and I'm going to go to Research Notebook 3. So Research Notebook 3 literally is for you to begin your selection of your research topic. So again, you select a topic and then ask probing questions about that topic. So again, research topic might be poverty, and your research question might be, what effects does poverty have on education? And like I said in the PowerPoint, it's the seeking out of the answers to your research question that will guide you in your research. And again, I've taught you about words of caution. Remember, this is something that you are going to be presenting to the class. So you're not obligated to do a social issue per se, but this is to help get you started on the process of beginning to research your topic. And remember, you're not locked in until you do the annotated bibliography. So make sure you read Defining Your Research Project that begins on page 602 in your Bedford Guide for College Writers. And then you're going to write a document that contains your research topic and your question. You do have to use MLA formatting for the assignments. And there will be a sample research notebook for Research Notebook 3. Again, it's very, very simple. Research Notebook 3, Fall 2020. It's going to be very, very simplistic. So here it is. I have my Jing Mei Terrell, the date, the topic in question. The topic is poverty, and the question is, what effects does poverty have on education? So there's your sample there. So that would be your first one for Research Notebook 3. That's really important. And then the other thing is, of course, your exemplification illustration essay. There's a PowerPoint, which of course I will send to you so that you've got that. But the exemplification illustration essay is what you're going to be working on for your first essay. So basically, you need to become familiar with the essay format. So exemplification, illustration, basic essay elements, PowerPoints, which I will add to content for you. You do have to have one source for it. So it does have to be an authoritative scholarly article that comes from the SFSC databases. You need to choose only one topic. This is very, very important. This is not your research topic. And I have to say this because I have had students say, well, I want this to be my research topic. It cannot be the same. Your exemplification illustration essay, I'm giving you the topics. For your research topic, you're writing about what you want to write about. But this particular one, I'm giving you a prompt and you will answer only one of them. So your first option is to write an essay in which you clearly and logically illustrate examples of technology in business or education. So, for example, you want to write about the rising of the use of AI in education. You could use that. Or if you wanted to write about the use of technology in education, and so you want to write about how teachers are just pushing out content on Chromebooks. Well, you have to have research to back that up. And so you have to find an article that demonstrates or illustrates that teachers are more heavily reliant on technology since the pandemic and distance learning. Option 2, you could write an essay in which you illustrate and provide specific examples of current healthcare issues. So that could be anything from lack of insurance coverage. That could be anything from watching or meeting with your doctor virtually and having telemedicine visits. It could be issues of lack of healthcare coverage for everyone, whether it's due to poverty or whether it's just due to misinformation. You could write an essay on the gap in Medicare for people that are on Medicare, and the gap in insurance where it only pays 80% of your healthcare costs and then that other 20% is not covered. You could also write about issues where dental insurance in most places is not adequate. I mean, there are a multitude of issues within healthcare. You could write about the shortage in nurses throughout the country. That's another issue in healthcare. You could write about the shortage in healthcare workers in general since the pandemic. I mean, there are a multitude of topics that you could write on. If there's a different topic that you want to write an illustration exemplification essay on, you need to email me to discuss it with me first. But these are the two topics for your exemplification illustration essay. So it's 500 to 600 words. It needs an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. There does not need to be a cover page. The essay must be typed and adhere to MLA formatting for guidelining, formatting, parenthetical citations, and works cited. Make sure that you are referring to not your Norton Field Guide, because that's the old textbook, but the Bedford Guide for College Readers. And all the essays are due by the posted due date. So we will not have any late essays accepted at all. And looking at your rough draft, really, you want to make sure that you are, and of course, this is your schedule here. These are everything that you need to read and look at. But you want to make sure that when you return for class on September 11th, that you have a rough draft of the exemplification illustration essay, because we're going to peer review it. And you have to bring a printed copy to class on September 11th. Remember, it's only 600 words, so it's just a page and a half. It's not a super, super long essay, but it is practice in it. And again, those are your topics. Of course, your topics are the either examples of technology in education or business, or issues in healthcare. So your research topic in question is due on September 10th. You have a quiz. If Black English isn't a language, then tell me what is. That's also due online by September 10th. That's a great essay written by James Baldwin. And then when we come back on week 5, we'll talk about thesis statements and strategies for developing a thesis statement, and the essential components to an essay, as well as looking at authoritative sources. Again, there's also this lovely guide here on your Brightspace. If you pull up the front of your Brightspace course, you will see that there is a fantastic guide here on finding scholarly sources using SFSC's databases. And I'm downloading that right now so that you can see it. But it is literally a great illustration. It kind of tells you exactly where you can go and how to find it, how to find the library. And then it also tells you you can look for subject database, you can do catalog and general searching. Again, it depends on what you're doing. And then you can find all kinds of information. So like, for example, you want to do something in arts and humanities, or you want to do something in education, health and medicine. Notice education, health, and medicine are all listed. Business is also listed. So this would be where you would go to try to find some information about whatever you decide to write your exemplification illustration essay on. Remember, it cannot be a popular source from a magazine. It has to be a scholarly, peer-reviewed source. So this handout is actually really, really handy. I know I went over the library very quickly, but it does have a lot of really great information in it as well. And then we also have here, let me just go to the handout here, recognizing objective and subjective language. I'm going to just copy and paste this into my bar here, and we're going to look at that. I guess the resource doesn't exist anymore, so that's not going to work for me. So don't worry about that right now. We'll talk about that when I see you next week. I am human and sometimes things happen. Your plagiarism paragraph is just a paragraph on the dangers of plagiarism. Just make sure that that gets finished and turned in as well. And all of your due dates should be updated. If you have any questions, as always, reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to assist in any way that I can. And I hope you guys have a fantastic week and a great Labor Day holiday week. I will be back in school on Tuesday. So again, office hours in the afternoons if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. hope you have a great holiday and enjoy your week. I'll see you on Tuesday or Monday of next week. Sorry, not Tuesday, with your rough drafts for your exemplification illustration essay. Thanks so much and have a great week.